Let's now take a look at the partner of a resume, and that is a cover letter. Let's have a look at how a cover letter should look like and what are the basics of it. Now, a cover letter happens to be a one-page description or details of what your resume does not detail about you. So, you're providing a brief summary about yourself in the cover letter. And that summary has all your credentials, and that's again where in the covering note you provide all that necessary or relevant information about your skills, and if you have any experience and anything else that you think can add value to the role through your skills or through your qualifications. Let's have a look at it in some while now. And yeah, third point is that remember that it's a very important part of, I mean, it's as good as, it should be as good as your resume is, and very important. So remember, you're creating the first impact or the first impression. Remember, the first impression has to be the best impression. You never get a second chance to make that impression. So let's now take a look at how a covering letter looks like. So what all goes into writing a covering note or a covering letter? You can mention about your internships, about your projects, about your extracurricular activities or any achievements that you have had during your course of study in university or college or school. Also, make a connection between what you did and what you're expected if you get the job. So it's you have seen about the job, you have read about the job or the description of the job. See whether you have the required skill sets, and if you do, you mention how your skill sets can add value to the job description. So do specify that, and what other things you can add happens to be your other details like your skills, your qualifications. Of course, your resume has these things, but you're again here reiterating or rather emphasizing on how you can be the best fit for that role through your skills, through your achievements, through your qualifications, how you can do justice to the role that has been advertised or the one that has been vacant and you're applying for. So these are the things to be included. Remember, you want the job, and how would you convince the recruiter about how you can be the right candidate is how you sell or market your skills. Do that here in the covering note. Say that you have all the skills that are required for the job, for which you of course have to do some kind of research or study, find out or list out whatever skill sets are required or what happens to be the criteria for that role. List it out and see or figure out how your own skill sets, whether they match the ones that are mentioned here for the role or not, and if they do, how you can highlight those skills in your covering letter, because you are here going to talk about what all you can do if you get the role, and definitely you have to talk about those skill sets. Now, detailed description would not be there in the resume, but you will give that description a little in detail in your covering note. Now, after having understood what are the things to include, let's also take a look at things which we can avoid. Yes, this is also important to know, because most of us end up making these petty blunders. Avoid using sentences or phrases like to whomsoever it may concern. This can be really very annoying. Please keep this away. And then also remember not to give a generic cover letter, something like, these are my skill sets and whatever, try and see what job fits me best in your organization. So do not be very generic about it, because your cover letter should specify what role you're applying for and what skill sets you have for that role. You would not say that these are my skill set, please see if they fit for any, if they're fitting or if they match any role that you have. So do not use any generic cover letter without any connection to a specific role. And yes, do not copy paste or use whatever bullet points you have from the resume, because here you are going to talk about what you are not covering in the resume. You're going to describe how you would fit into the role that has been advertised for. And now some additional pointers which have to be kept in mind when you're writing a covering note. Before you go ahead writing this covering letter or note, do some groundwork, do some research, find out the name of the person that you're addressing or writing to. So the message or the advertisement must have come from HR department or some company. So if possible, find out from various resources, you can find out the name of the person. And if once you get the name, nothing like it, you can directly address the person saying dear so and so, dear Mr. so and so, or dear Tom, or dear whatever name. If you do not know the name, you can simply go ahead addressing the person by the title, for instance to the hiring manager or to the manager recruitments and name of the company. So this is a proper way of initiating or starting the covering note. After you have addressed the person, next we go on talking about providing subject line and reference. Those also are very important in a covering note. In subject line, you will mention that it's an application for the post of. So there you will mention what title or what role you are applying for. And in reference, so you have subject and reference. You can just write short forms SUB and REF. In reference, you will mention the job ID. That is when any post has been advertised or any such advertisement you come across, maybe on LinkedIn or from someone, there must be some job ID. Do mention that job ID if it is there. And if it is something like, from some advertisement, it could be a newspaper advertisement, or it could be from some portal that you've got this information. So do mention that reference there. Say if it is with job ID, LinkedIn advertisement dated so and so. So it's important to give these details in subject and in reference, and then you can start off with the actual contents, the way you would actually have a conversation with the person. You can just say that I'm a you can start off with I'm a postgraduate, or I'm a graduate with a specialization in this, and then you can go on talking about how it was described in my previous slides about your skill sets, your internship, and how you fit into the role. So that description would come, or that would be the major contents. So before you write those actual contents, remember to address the person by name. If you don't know the name, the title and the name of the company, and then provide the subject and also the reference, and then the actual contents. So after having provided basic information and also relevant skills or whatever you need, we just discussed that have to come into this in the actual contents, you come to the sign off or the conclusion part of the covering letter. That's where you can just add a couple of lines thanking the reader for the time taken to read your covering note and to peruse the resume. You can actually end saying that, thank you for your time, and close by saying, looking forward to being associated with you, or looking forward to receiving a favorable opinion from you. So this is how you can end and then sign off. Normally when we write a covering note or a covering letter, we can save it as a document and send it as an attachment along with the resume. So when you're drafting an email, you will have by then saved the covering note as a document, and you've also saved your resume maybe in PDF format or just a document, Word document format. So you will attach both of these in the email and then send it across. So the way you present this information is also very important. So you're letting the person know what you're sending across and thanking the person for the time the person would be spending in reading or reviewing your resume and your covering note. And yes, do not forget to attach your covering note and resume after having said that you're attaching these. Most of the times we do mention in the email that attached is or attached are, but there is no attachment. So please be careful that you check even these things when you're emailing to the recruiter. And a few more pointers just in case, if these I'm sure would be helpful when you send across your resume along with the covering note. Some things to remember: use a standard template, and remember page margins would be 1 inch on all the 4 sides, and the orientation to be, again, it's portrait and not landscape. And use professional fonts. Font size can be 11 or 12. 11 is ideal. Do a spell check, language check, grammar check. It's important. Yeah, you cannot have a poorly written, poorly drafted email and right from the beginning give such a poor impression that your resume would not even be taken into account. So it's here that you make the actual impression, the first impression. Everything should be perfect, flawless. So check your spellings, check grammar, save the document, whatever documents you have, it's a covering note or resume, save them in Word format or in PDF format. Always, always, always review, revise your draft before you send across. You might have missed something, so check for that. Look for attachments, and your attachment should also have relevant name. So if you have saved your covering note or covering letter and you've saved your resume, do mention in the name if it's a resume or it's a covering note. That will be easy for the person who reads your email to pull out what is required based on the name of the attachment. So just keep these pointers in mind. Happy resume writing and happy application for your job.